Welcome to the EchoCast episode 153. We're going to talk about the PlayStation Showcase. This is a podcast about gaming news, all gaming platforms, and technology in general from the perspective of a lifelong nerd and now dad gamer. I am Morgan, aka Bon Diesel. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. Comments, likes, and subs on YouTube, retweets on Twitter, and the iTunes reviews are the most helpful. Also, be sure to let me know if you have any questions or topics for the next show by replying on Twitter, posting in the YouTube comments, or by becoming a patron. Thank you to our Patreon supporters this month: Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, Man-Made Golf, Lunchbox, and Dale. If you'd like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BonDiesel. This episode, we are going to talk about the PlayStation Showcase, Mass Effect Next, the Division news, quote unquote, recent game reviews, listener questions, content updates, and more. Jumping right into the PlayStation Showcase. It was quite a doozy, so let's talk about it. The first, I skipped a few games that I just don't even want to comment on, if I have to be totally honest. I would only have bad things to say, and they aren't even exclusives, I don't think. So we'll just pretend like those don't exist. The first game I will mention is the KOTOR Knights of the Old Republic remake that was announced. Some interesting things about that. So if you don't know, so KOTOR was on PC. It was an Xbox console exclusive, and it still is to this day. The remake is going to be a PlayStation launch exclusive, so it sounds like at some point it's going to come to Xbox as well. And I believe I tried to do a little bit of digging because I don't think it was really obvious in the press release, but I believe it's going to be day one PC as well. So for PC players, you'll be fine. I'd say the biggest thing about this is that it's not BioWare doing the remake. So this is not a Legendary Edition Mass Effect situation. This is a different company that's doing it. I actually would be really curious to learn about the licensing deals and how that works, and whether or not I assume LucasArts or Disney or someone has the rights to it and can let whoever wants to work on it. And obviously Sony probably playing up the cash to make it exclusive to them, at least at first. So I never played KOTOR, so this honestly means nothing to me, but it is something I may check out on PC. So, or if it comes to Xbox in a reasonable amount of time. So exciting. It seems like the people who are into that are very excited. Project Eve, they showed that. I don't know what the fuck that was all about. So, okay. Well, I don't know. Some of this stuff definitely wasn't my thing. Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I don't believe this is exclusive to Xbox or to Sony, to PlayStation. I don't like the Borderlands games. I think that they try way too hard to be funny. I don't find the humor entertaining at all, and I hate cel-shaded games like this. Obviously, I liked The Walking Dead, and maybe I didn't mind it in that context through that type of game. It also did become a little bit more realistic looking as the series went on, but regardless, I don't know. I have no interest in that. And if you're into it, and if that's your jam, then I'm super excited for you. But that game does not hold any interest to me personally. So it looked okay. I guess it just looked like Borderlands. Forspoken. So this is probably, I promise I'm going to be more positive towards the end here. I think Forspoken looks awful. I think that there's a lot of excitement about it because it's a potentially big Sony exclusive, and the people who are in that community and in that platform get excited about anything that's like big and new for them. Um, I thought it looked awful. I thought the graphics looked abysmal. It looks like an Unreal test demo, like a test game. That game that or the test thing that they, or the showcase thing they did for Unreal 5 when it got revealed. It just looks like that to me. It, it I just I'm confused because there's a lot of excitement about that game, but it just looks so just, I don't know. I don't get the excitement for it. It also looks like it's gonna kind of border on that line of trying too hard to be like really edgy and really breaking ground or whatever. I don't know. I don't get it. I did just realize that if you're watching the video, my wife put our step stool in the background of and we're just gonna roll with it. That's just the way we're going. So if you're an audio listener, if you want to see what I'm talking about, check out that youtube.com/c/Bondiesel. Get up. So for Spoken, I don't get it. It doesn't look interesting to me. I think it looks very generic and kind of weird and plain, but I hope I'm very wrong. I probably will be. Ghostwire Tokyo, I don't know what the fuck that's all about with Slender Man and a bunch of other weird shit going on. I don't think that's an exclusive. I thought I remember seeing that was going to be multi-plat. I don't know, man. This showcase had a bunch of games where I was just like, this is not my jam. And then we got to this part of the show. So the Uncharted Legacy remaster, I've actually never played an Uncharted game. They seem like they'd be my jam. Basically, dude, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. I do intend to get a PS5 eventually. It's going to be a while. And I would prefer to get a PS5 digital when I get one. So that probably won't be for another year or two, though. I'm okay to wait. They showed more Deathloop. I don't think anyone on earth wants to see more of this game. I think the people excited for it don't want to get spoiled anything more, and I think the people who don't care still don't care. So I think it is funny that there's going to be an Xbox Studios publishing logo on a PS5 exclusive game. I think it's a timed exclusive. I could be wrong. But because it's being developed by one of the studios that Xbox acquired, but I'm sure there are contractual obligations that they still had to honor the deal to be exclusive. A new game was teased, Wolverine. So it's going to be another Marvel game made by Insomniac, who did the Star Wars, who did Spider-Man and Miles Morales, which are both pretty highly rated, very heralded games. As comic book games, but it was just games in general. And Insomniac has, a ridiculous history, and I'm sure another Wolverine game will be super cool. What I think will be interesting is there was the Wolverine game that came back, I think back in the 360 era, that wasn't really that good, but it was hyper gruesome. It was very, very graphic, and I really hope that's the direction they go with this Wolverine game. I don't think that the Spider-Man games are very graphic or brutal. And I really don't think you're doing a Wolverine game justice if it's not just brutal. So that's a game that, oddly enough, would actually be a system seller for me, especially being made by Insomniac. So I'll be keeping my eye very close on that one. Gran Turismo 7 was shown. It's what's so interesting about the whole like Forza and Gran Turismo thing is both of those games I think are really good. I like Forza and I like Gran Turismo back in the day, but I don't really think that the racing genre is really that big. And for people who are really into that, I have to imagine that the more like sim type games that are out, like Project Cars and stuff like that, I have to imagine those are the games that are more preferred. So it's kind of funny where like Forza and now Forza Horizon, where Forza Horizon is much more arcadey, and I think it does appeal to more people. Where Forza and Gran Turismo are like they're not really sims, but they're not casual enough for the average player. Or like Horizon, I think is that perfect, like just fun, just go drive around and be wild. Um, it just feels like Gran Turismo and Forza now are uh, just tech demos for the systems. Like, look how fucking dope we can make our games look, because they look ridiculous. They look so good. So the Gran Turismo 7 look cool, but I kind of question how many people are like really like fell on the floor when that got announced. So we'll see. Spider-Man 2 got announced. I don't believe it showed any actual gameplay. I think it was just a trailer. It sounds like it's definitely, I guess, like Venom and maybe Carnage. It sounds like it was kind of, there was a we used word. So unless there's some weird things going on with gender pronouns with Venom, it seems like they're trying to say that there's going to be multiple baddies. So, I mean, it looks like it's going to be Spider-Man and Miles Morales coming together in some capacity. So, cool. That's that game was, especially Spider-Man, the original, is still talked about as being one of the more impressive games on PlayStation, and it is a full exclusive. And Miles Morales got panned a little bit for basically just being a big DLC that I think was sold at full price, but people bought it, and I've still heard really great things about it. So yeah, and then they wrapped up their show with God of War. I think, as most people expected, it's going to be a Nordic thing again. They did an after show where they showed some, I think, like art and stuff like that showed like Thor and some other, well-known, kind of Viking Nordic mythological features will be involved. So I predicted, I think it was last week, I said, I bet this God of War 2 or Valhalla isn't really going to be like a God of War 2, but it's going to be more of like Miles Morales, or what Miles Morales was to God of War, or to Spider-Man 1. And I think that's showing that that's probably the case. That doesn't mean it's going to be short. That doesn't mean it's going to be bad. I mean, God of War still holds up today, and it's still, one of the very, very respected games, and gaming in general. And there's some people being stupid, showing that like there's an animation where Kratos is jumping into a boat, and someone compared it to the animation in God of War, and it's exactly the same. Well, newsflash. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm sure that animation was good then. It's still good now. And instead of spending, a week or two on an animation of him jumping into a boat to make a brand new one from scratch, which is what apparently this person on Twitter wants, they were probably able to make a whole different boss, or add detail to this other area, or make the game run smoother in this part. So, I mean, that's why I'm kind of predicting that this is going to be more of the same from God of War. If I remember correctly, that was Game of the Year, and I'm sure they will, boost the graphics. I'm sure they will add new mechanics and things to it. So more of the same when you're talking about one of the best games ever made, in a lot of people's opinions, is probably going to be okay, because I bet they aren't going to do exactly the same, and they'll put just enough in there to make it feel like a new experience. And that's fine, because for every one person who tries to moan and groan about it, who's probably driven by some stupid console or bullshit, there's probably going to be like 100,000 people who love it. So so I'm sure God of War is going to be fine. I think the main omission that I was surprised they didn't talk about at all was what the Last of Us team is doing. So I believe there was supposed to be DLC for The Last of Us 2, and then there's also supposed to be the multiplayer. Now, if I remember correctly, I thought that the multiplayer at least got delayed and potentially got canceled, but don't quote me on that. So I was surprised that we didn't get any news from them, but that's where we're at. So overall, it was a great show. I think that the heavy hitters at the end definitely boosted what I personally found to be a bunch of trash at the beginning. If I have to be totally honest, I think everything up to Wolverine was either like, yeah, I'm just not going to get super excited about remasters and things like that. And then a bunch of weirdo games that are just not appealing to me. Obviously, I'm sure there are people who are super hyped about it, but I think that, the Wolverine, Spider-Man, and God of War were such strong announcements that the thing about Sony is that they have so many good IPs exclusive to them that they don't have to do that much to have a good show. I still think that they should catch more shit for all of their exclusives and all their best games being third person adventure games. Every single one. And that's fine because they're so good that they can do that, right? But it would be cool to see them put out like a really good first person game or a really good like RPG or MMO or something other than I guess Gran Turismo. But and I'm sure that's coming. I'm sure that they've got stuff in the works. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was obviously a great show, and it was very much carried by its heavy hitters, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. So good for PlayStation. The second story I was going to talk about was some Mass Effect news or developments or whatever. So Jeff Grubb put out a tweet and some information saying that if you don't know, BioWare is under EA, if you don't know that somehow. And EA made a big push years ago and basically told all their studios, like, hey, DICE has this Frostbite engine, and we want it's our in-house engine. We own it because we own DICE and who makes Battlefield. And that's what that engine was developed for, was Battlefield 3, I think. Because I think the earlier ones were on Unreal. And they basically forced all of the companies that they own to use Frostbite. And if you don't know, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 were all on Unreal 3, I believe, back in the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. And we saw what happened with a bunch of EA properties. I remember during the switch over to Frostbite, there were issues in all their sports games. There were issues were any of the Medal of Honor games Frostbite? I can't remember. Frostbite works really well for the Battlefield series. It's a gorgeous engine. But it seems like, it was made for that style of game. And it seems like there's been issues with trying to make that switch. If you played Andromeda, even today with all the updates and fixes that they've put in, it still just doesn't seem right. And when you read about the development of Andromeda, you'll find that one, it was not their A team, and two, they had to spend so much time recreating systems from the Mass Effect main series and trying to move them over to Frostbite by basically doing them from scratch. And when you have a team on a fairly short development cycle that's inexperienced and is working with a legendary IP, and they have to spend a bulk or a majority of their development not working on the story and characters and animations and things like that, and they spend it trying to recreate systems in this new engine for them, you get Andromeda, which is a game that I think if you're a Mass Effect fan, you should play. And I played it once, and I'll probably never play it again. I have very neutral feelings about it. It was fine. Still not great, and I wouldn't even call it good. It was Mass Effect Andromeda is an okay game. And so what I think, and then BioWare also had issues with Anthem and this kind of same vein. So I think what you're seeing is BioWare knows that this next Mass Effect game has to be big. It has to be good. I bet EA agrees, and because they want to make a bunch of money off of it. And so there's rumors that BioWare is at least toying with the idea of using Unreal Engine 5 for the next Mass Effect. Now, Jeff Grubb called it Mass Effect 5 because Andromeda wasn't a numbered game. I still consider the next game Mass Effect 4 because if you read about Andromeda, in my opinion, from what I've read, it sounds like Andromeda was intended to be a not a spin-off necessarily, but it was meant to be its own trilogy. It was meant to be its own set of games, and it's set in a different galaxy hundreds of years after the events of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And because of that, I don't consider it part of the, the 1, 2, 3. I very much consider it, its own series, especially after they canceled 2 and 3, the trilogy of Andromeda. Now they have said that the next Mass Effect, or they've said and they've kind of insinuated that both galaxies will be involved, the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. That's led a lot of people to imply that Mass Effect, the next Mass Effect, is going to take place in the same time frame as Andromeda, which would be hundreds of years after Mass Effect 3, which would mean that basically all of the characters that we knew from Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 will be dead. Liara, in theory, any Krogans could still be alive. There's rumors and there's people who have speculated that because of the events of 2, that Shepard could still be alive because he's so full of biotics that he may basically be closer to a robot than a man, considering that he was brought back to life essentially. And if you do Mass Effect 3 the right way, he lives. Spoiler alert. But come on, it's a very old game, and if you haven't figured that out by now, I don't feel that bad. So, I mean, it seems like Unreal Engine 5 is such a good engine, and Unreal in general just seems like it's so easy to work with, and I really hope that's the direction they go. I did see some rumors, people saying like, oh, well, if they use Unreal Engine 5, that means that you could carry over your save from Mass Effect Legendary Edition to the next Mass Effect. One, I hope so. I hope you can do that because even if it does skip ahead hundreds of years, it still would be cool, even if in like maybe somewhat mundane or menial ways, choices that you made during the series could show in the next game, even if it's not like the main focus or it doesn't impact giant story arcs. It still would be cool. There is also the idea of they probably could have carried over your choices from Legendary Edition, even if it was on Frostbite. My understanding is that when you go from 1 to 2 to 3, when you go to 2 and 3, it's literally just reading like a text file of your decisions. It's not like it's using the engine to transfer those decisions, your progress or the things that you did. It's probably using literally a TXT file that just logs everything that you pick and then moves it to the next game and affect those things. So, I mean, they could have probably done that either way. I think the final big news that he kind of threw out there is that he's under the impression that actual physical development of the next Mass Effect won't begin until 2023. So 2023, that means that not next year, but the year after that is when they'll actually start development. Most games have a 2 to 3 year development cycle. And so what this tells me, from what I know, I've gotten a lot of insight into games being made, and I know a lot of people who work at a bunch of different studios, obviously Ubisoft studios mostly, but some others as well. And what I would guess is that means that so if you've paid attention to Mass Effect, you'll know that in the last year or two they've hired back a bunch of the OG people from Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and they're back at BioWare, and they have been for some time. Now, Casey Hudson did leave back in December, I believe. So what I'm assuming is they're in like serious pre-production mode right now, and they will be for the next year and a half, or at least a year and 3 months or whatever. And what that says to me is that, one, that's probably a good thing. we get used to games coming out and then a sequel coming out 2 or 3 years later, and that's because they probably did pre-production on the first game for multiple years and even planned for the second game, and then they jumped into development of the first one that took 2 or 3 years, and then they jumped straight into development of the next one. That's essentially what happened to the Division 1 and 2, if you're part of that community or you're aware of that game. And that's basically what I think happened to Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, is that they made those games fairly quickly after each other. And Mass Effect 1, even though graphically and stuff, it's not as impressive as 2 and 3, the depth of its systems and the size of that game, you can just tell they had so much more time to work on that game. So, I mean, obviously it's a bummer to consider that Mass Effect whatever next to 4 or 5, whatever it's going to be, or it'll probably be something else entirely. It's a bummer to know that it's probably not coming until 2026 at the earliest, which is 5 years from now. But that's probably a good thing. And there's so many other games. And honestly, the Legendary Edition, I'll talk about more about this later. I'm on my 3rd playthrough of that already. So, and I have other games to play, as I'll talk about as well. So the Mass Effect news, if you've been listening to the podcast, you'll know that it was like an awakening for me, this spring, in this summer playing that game. I had always dismissed the series and didn't think it'd be my thing. And now it legit is at least tied with The Division for being my favorite series. If you keep it between us, it's probably overtaken The Division. So, yeah. So there's your Mass Effect news if you haven't caught it before. Speaking of The Division, I'm going to talk a bit about that. So, as all of the YouTubers will have you know this week, Yannick tweeted, and it was in response to someone saying like, hey, why is this? So they're in season 7, which is a replay of season 4, and it's 7 because they skipped season 2 in the replays. So if that all makes sense. And it sounds like they did that because they had a expected time of release of this new content. And if they would have done season 2, it would have pushed the seasons beyond their anticipated release date for the new content. So what that means is that in theory, if season 7, which is a replay of 4, which is Faye's season, Manhunt, in theory, it should end around November, middle of November. Now, right now, it's set to go on for 22 weeks. So that would put it well beyond that. And so someone tweeted Yannick like, hey, why does it say it's going to last for 22 weeks? Does that mean new content isn't coming until next year? And Yannick responded and said, no, we put that in there so we can be intentionally vague. So it doesn't set a date for us before we can set the date. I'm paraphrasing. And yeah, that's why. And so then came the YouTube videos, and then came the tweets and everyone speculating and doing the thing that they always do. So what I will say is that to me, that says that, one, the fact that he even responded says I'm willing to bet that they're probably on time, and that they would probably be in the polishing phase of whatever they're working on. If we're in September, I suspect they're going to announce what it is next month, and then it will probably release in November. And that's okay. I know that people are anxious and they want information. The thing is that the Division especially, but a lot of games, has handled hype so badly, and they've gotten people so hyped in the past, only to be kind of let down by what comes. And a lot of it came from them like giving us too little information that was also too much too early, and then people like and they sensationalize and they kind of speculate too much, and it probably includes myself. And I know people are very anxious, but I really think that I really hope that they like announce in October, like, hey, it's October 15th or whatever. This is what is coming to Division 2, and it's coming in 1 month. It comes next month. And then there's a few weeks of hype, some trailers, and, all that good stuff. And then it's over. And then we get it and we go from there. I've been pretty pushy about telling people don't expect the moon here. I've seen people saying that they think that they're gonna like add a DZ to New York or like double the size of the DC map. That shit's probably not happening, man. Like be real. They've talked about this new mode that's new to the series, so it's not gonna be Last Stand or Survival or anything. Expect that to be probably something pretty substantial. They essentially recreated a division team to make this. And I'm sure they're working on other stuff. I know there's been talk of seasons and manhunts and apparel events and all that. So I'm sure they've got people working on those things too, right? That's probably a smaller team. I imagine the bulk of people are working on this new game mode, and it's probably gonna be pretty substantial. I don't think that they would I don't think they would dedicate all these resources to do something like the summit that is fine, but isn't really that big of a deal. But I still think people should go in with low expectations. I just, because what it's doing is it's setting up. Now I know that the predicted people are making all their hype videos right now. Like, oh, I can't wait. And then it's going to come out, and no matter what it is, they're going to be, oh, this is a disappointment, failure, Destiny 2. Like, I mean, that's going to happen. I can tell you today that's how it's going to happen. The same people hyping the shit up now and, speculating and acting like they have information when they really have nothing. And being so excited. They already have their scripts written for, November when it comes out, and they say, this is disappointing. And they have a video with their face and they're all scrunched up and they're looking at the camera like, I don't like this. It's going to happen. I can tell you today that's already planned. Yeah. So I don't know. I think people should keep their expectations reasonable. And then kind of just be excited that we're getting more, because season 4 was supposed to be the end, and it wasn't. It was probably always a plan to redo the seasons, to run them through again, but I don't think we were supposed to get anything else. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that. So, and when it comes to the sensationalism and stuff, like I really, 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 encourage people to not watch those videos, to not retweet those tweets, to not interact with those people. It's just, I understand that people are trying to stay relevant, and I understand that people are trying to keep their clicks and get their 30 cents from their video, from their ad revenue. But it's just, this is a really good time for people to try to expand their boundaries. It's something I've tried to do. Hasn't really been that successful, but I'm having fun with it. And, when Heartland and Division 2's content comes out, I'm probably going to talk a shit ton about it and make videos and stream it for sure, obviously. But until then, until there's something to actually talk about or actually make videos for or actually stream, I just really encourage people not to reinforce some of the bad behavior that's going on. That's my plea. Up to you to go for it or not. I do have some mini game reviews I wanted to kind of give. So I am actually replaying the Division 2. I'm doing it live on stream. If you check out the VODs on my YouTube page, you can see those. They are pretty clearly marked with their thumbnails and such. It's been a lot of fun. I never played through the game again after I played it the first time. My main character, I've only ever played them. I've restarted the game a couple times and just never gone through with it. This is the most I've gone through with it since Division 2 came out, and it's a lot of fun. That 1 to 30 or 1 to 40 experience, if you have Warlords, is really great. It's a lot of fun. I understand the story isn't like the best story in the world, and it's better than I remember, if I have to be totally honest. And they did a bunch of quality of life updates to the 1 to 30 or 1 to 40. That weren't there when the game released. I've noticed a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh man, this is so much nicer than the first time I played back in 2019. So, it's been a lot of fun, and it's definitely kind of reinvigorated. I wanted to do this to kind of, I assume by the time that I finish, the new content will be out and it'll be fun to get back into it. Like I said before, I am actually playing through Mass Effect again. So, what I did something kind of tricky. I played through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And I Um, I played through the 1, 2, and 3 the first time and just rushed through them and didn't. It sucked. I mean, it was amazing. It was one of my favorite gaming experiences ever, but I rushed it way too fast. I beat all 3 of them in like a week. Way too fast. So then after I beat it the first time, I went from 1 to 3 again. But when I was in 2, I found a point in the second third, or the like 2/3 of the way through the game, where I hadn't romanced anyone yet, and I had time to do that, and I saved it as a blank save. And so now I can start from there and choose different paths from there, and that's what I've done now. So my first main playthrough, my romance partner there was Tally. I'm pretty much always going to pick the destroy ending in 3. I really see no reason to pick the other ones. It's the only one that makes sense to me. But this time I'm doing a romance with Liara, who I believe and I think will become the quote unquote canon romance when the next game comes out. Because I don't know if Shepard's going to be involved in the next game or whatever, but I do think that they are going to canonize the destroy ending, probably romancing Liara. And I want to have a save available for that, assuming they're going to let us carry it over. Playing through it again, I mean, it's just such a good series. If you haven't played Mass Effect, even if you're not into those type of games, you should check it out. I really fell in love with that series, and even though I don't love Andromeda, I mean the next Mass Effect is my most anticipated game right now. It just sucks that it's probably 5 years away or more. And then the final one, man, a game called The Artful Escape came out. It's on Game Pass. That's where I played it. It's on other platforms as well. It is wild. It is such a cool experience. It is not my type of game. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a side scroller walking simulator music game. I don't know, but it's art direction and it's bizarre. It's great. So The Artful Escape, it's amazing. Please check it out. If you have Game Pass specifically, you have to check it out. If you don't, maybe look at some videos, check it out and see if it might be your thing and pay. I assume it's 20 or 30 bucks. I can't wait to finish it. I'm not done with it yet. I've played through I think a pretty big chunk of it. But I know I'm not done. And, I would really love for you all to take that journey with me. It's so cool. With listener questions this week, we have Master Prime, the old reliable here. You had one question I already answered about Yannick. So I'll answer your other 3. Your first one is, what makes the Division special? I think for me, what makes the Division special is that if you look at the other games in the same genre, they are all like fantasy, space, kind of magic games, where the Division has those elements, but they're covered by a realistic aesthetic. And I know that's why I like it, and I don't like those other games. I don't like Warframe. I don't like Destiny. I like the Division. Now, I will argue that I like the Division despite it being a looter. I think the Division would fit much better and be in a genre something closer to Mass Effect, or to the old Ghost Recon games and things like that. But that's just me. But I think it's just the game. It's so good to play. Even if you get bored running the same content, even if you are mad that it's not as good as it should be, or that, they don't put out enough content for it or whatever, that's fine. But it's just it feels so good to play. That's doing this new playthrough. It's reminded me, like, God, this game just feels so good to play. And I think that's what makes it special. Your second question is, how is the change from Twitch to YouTube going? It's been really good. There's definitely some things about YouTube that I wish they had some of the features Twitch has, but on the other hand, there's also a bunch of stuff YouTube does that I like a lot more. Scheduling streams and the quality. I'm able to stream the podcast. That I tried 1440p the other day and it worked great, and I can stream at like 10 or 10,000 or more bit rate, which makes it look just incredible. And they have a really good encoder thing. So if you can't stream it that high, you can drop it down and it works. You don't have to be partnered. And it's been really nice. I think it's going to be a long slog to get partnered, but I do think I can do it. Especially when or if Heartland and the Division 2 content comes out. I think I can pump a lot of content during that time and probably hit the numbers I need to hit. And that's really exciting. So it's been really great. And then the final question from Master Prime here is, are you going to play the Halo Infinite Tech review? Oh yeah. I plan on knocking that, hitting that pretty hard this weekend. So if it's allowed to be streamed, which I believe it is, I will be playing on stream. For sure. I'd prefer to play on my Xbox, but I think I will probably get a Steam code. So I'll play it on my PC. So yeah, Master Prime, thank you very much for your questions. As always, again, like I said at the beginning, if you have your own questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. You can post them in the YouTube comments, or if you are a patron, you can post questions or send me a message on there. As for content updates, nothing real big. I already answered Master Prime's question about the Switch and how that's going. I've really enjoyed it so far. I do have a bunch of VODs and stuff available that are starting to pop up. They will have their own playlists soon-ish. I've redid the thumbnails, so it's more obvious when there's a VOD, and it's a little bit less obnoxious when it's a live stream, when it's going live. Yeah, it's good. The only other big update is that I did find through EVGA a 2080 Super. So I wanted a 3060 Ti GPU for my PC, but the 2080 Super is it's actually a little bit better. It's a very solid card, and it's going to do the things I want. And I found it for a price that's less than I can get a 3060 Ti for. So no complaints there. I am excited to get that and install it. I am actually selling my 1070 Ti. If you're interested in that, you can message me on Twitter. I do have a post up there with some pictures of it, and let me know if you're interested in it. I'm selling it on eBay. I'm sure it's going to go on there for the price I have it. And other than that, that's kind of all I have this week. So just so you know, I do stream here on YouTube. If you're watching me the video, or if you're an audio listener, check me out on YouTube at youtube.com/c/bondiesel. Make sure to subscribe, ring the bell. Please like every video you can. Hit that thumbs up, leave comments. That is great for the algorithm and get my channel noticed and get me closer to that partnership. You can check me out on Twitter at Bondiesel or at the EchoCast if you just want gaming tweets and retweets. If you want some cool EchoCast or Bondiesel merch, check out streamlabs.com/Bondiesel. And that's all I have. So until next time.